suppose I struggle with the Canadian Sport for Life definition, in that you can see that there's connotations in there that are physical literacy is only fundamental movement. So the bottom quote there, the development of fundamental movement skills and fundamental sport skills, it's not just about fundamental movement. If we look at the second quote there, physical literacy is the cornerstone of both participation and excellence. And ideally, physical literacy is developed prior to the adolescent growth spurt. That is totally misleading. Physical literacy isn't developed during growth and development. It is developed during the lifelong. So from the minute you're born to when you die, you are on a physical literacy journey. So let's get that sort of issue out of the way. Physical literacy isn't just between a certain stage in a young child's life when they're growing and developing. And it isn't just associated with elite performance, and it's not just associated with fundamental movement skill. Long-term athlete development has become a very, very popular model around the world. And again, quite rightly so, because there's some really, really good points that I think as coaches and teachers that we can take from it. However, what has happened is physical literacy, long-term athlete development has been interpreted in a certain way to involve and incorporate physical literacy. So if we look at the South African Sport for Life long-term participant development model, so their definition for physical literacy, all right, it's got competence in there, it's got confidence in there, which is good. But it also talks about fundamental movement and fundamental sport skills. So it suggests then, if I'm a coach or a teacher interpreting that, again, I think physical literacy is just about FMS. It's about the ABCs of movement, agility, balance, coordination. It's about the RCTs of movement, running, catching, throwing. It's about the KGBs, kicking, gliding, buoyancy, if we're doing movements in the water. Okay, so again, it can be misconstrued, it can be a bit of a misconception. That's how Canada and South Africa have used it and interpreted physical literacy, mainly from a health perspective or a sport perspective. Now, some countries, and we'll look at Wales, we'll look at England, we'll look at Northern Ireland, they have interpreted physical literacy from a government agenda. So if we look at the Welsh physical literacy agenda, this was a national sport and physical activity strategy called Climbing Higher that was produced in 2005. So you can see within that document there, ensuring that in the process of personal development, the acquisition of physical literacy is as important as the development of numeracy and literacy skills. So the government in Wales in 2005 recognised that physical literacy was important, or an important component, for healthy development of young children. And they put it on the same level as numeracy and literacy. Now again, to be really cynical, if you look at in schools in Wales at the minute, we have a numeracy strategy. We have a literacy strategy. That young children, by the time they get to 11 and 12 years of age, they should have a certain numeracy age. They should have a certain reading age. Why haven't we got a physical literacy strategy in Wales, or a physical education strategy that says by a certain age, we would at least expect young children to be competent in certain skills? Not that we can measure them and put them on a pedestal and say you're better than others, but simply so we've got some indication of what they are doing and how they are doing and where they're at in their level of development. So numeracy and literacy has moved on. Physical literacy, physical education, physical activity hasn't really progressed. And yet, 10 years ago, 12 years ago now, we can see there that the acquisition of physical literacy is as important. It was high up on the government agenda in Wales, and yet very, very little has happened. Again, Welsh Government produced another document of physical activity strategy in 2009. Again, they still recognised physical literacy was important. And again, they've said we need to prioritise it. But again, nothing has really happened. So is it that sort of government rhetoric where they use certain words to try and get people on side and demonstrate to people that they are doing something, and physical education and physical activity is important? One of the other things that they say in this in that definition there is that they talk about the delivery of physical literacy, and this is something I want to get across to you guys, is that I bet a number of you, and you might be doing it in your football clubs and your community clubs currently, you might be delivering a physical literacy program. You can't deliver physical literacy. It's not something you can take and say, right, I am delivering physical literacy. It is an outcome of what you deliver. You can deliver high quality physical education. You can deliver high quality coaching. And within that high quality PE or high quality coaching, I would be able to see aspects of physical literacy or the attributes of physical literacy: motivation, confidence, competence, understanding, knowledge. So you shouldn't be delivering a program of physical literacy. You can't take it. It's not in a book. It's not like you can deliver a football program. You can deliver a rugby program. You can't deliver a physical literacy. It's an outcome of what we do as quality coaches and teachers.